Okay, we're going to learn how to set up some specific button features on the Avaya 9500 and 9600 series desk phones. I'm currently using a 9508 model here. There are several model numbers and variations of these phones, and they look a little different than this one. Some might have fewer buttons, some might have more buttons, or the buttons might be arranged differently. But if your model number begins with a 95 or a 96, then this is the same procedure that you will use for your phone. Let's get started. We're going to cover three most commonly used button features. They're called abbreviated dial, which is a one-touch speed dial. It's typically used to dial a number outside of your phone system, and it's usually a number you dial often. The abbreviated dial feature eliminates the necessity of dialing the full number every time that you want to place a call to that particular party. Abbreviated dial can also be used to dial a string of numbers for other purposes, such as account codes or conference bridge codes, or maybe a short code to remotely control a door lock or other devices. So let's get into the button programming mode. To do that, we'll press Features, and then Phone User, and then Self-Administer. Okay, it's going to ask you for a PIN. This PIN number is the same as your login code for your phone, which would have been set up by your installer or your administrator, maybe at some later time after the installation. In our case here, it's the same as our extension number, 201, and then you press either the pound key, OK, or done. They all do the same function. Once you do that, you see a list of your buttons. On the 9508, you have buttons 1 through 4, 5 through 8. If you page to the right, then you go up through 16. Page to the right again, you go through 24. So here we have our buttons listed, and then the feature that's associated with that button. You can scroll up and down using the up and down arrows, or you can scroll forward a time using the left and right arrows. We're going to scroll over here to buttons 13 through 16, which is the second page on this side. Okay, so we're at button 13, and we're going to hit Replace to replace what's currently there. Then we're going to scroll down to Abbreviated Dial. This is your list of available features. So Abbreviated Dial, hit OK. Now at this point, it's asking for the phone number that you want dialed when you press this button 13 that we're currently programming. I'm going to caution you here, if you would normally dial 9 to call this party, then you do have to dial the 9 here, if you have to dial 9 to get an outside line. So we're going to dial a 9, and then we're going to dial Advanced Systems 800 number, 800-247-2047, 274-2047. And once we have our number in there, we're going to hit Save. Okay, at this point, what you're going to want to do is press More and Label, and what you're going to do here is put what you want it to say next to the button that we're programming on this. In this case, I am going to put ASI. I'm going to put a space in between so that they just automatically are capitalized. And the way you spell it out is like I used the 2 button 1 time for the A, the 7 button 4 times for the S, the 4 button 3 times for the I, kind of like the old texting method. So that's what I'm going to put there, and I'm going to hit Save. Now when I go back to my home screen, when I go to that button, it's going to say ASI, and if I press it, it's going to dial that number. So that's abbreviated dial. Now we're going to scroll down to the next button, button 14, and we are going to program what they call a user BLF, or busy lamp field. This button will show the status of the user for whom you program the button, and it also will act as a one-touch speed dial to that user. This is another user on the system. So we're going to hit replace. Again, here's our list of available features, and we're going to scroll down to user BLF and hit OK. Now at this point it wants the extension number or the party that we're going to program this button for. There's two ways to do this. You can either press this directory button, scroll through the directory, find the person, select them, and that will work. But what we're going to do here, I also want to demonstrate that you can just put the extension number in here. We're going to go with extension 201. No, we're not. That's our extension. We're going to go with 202, which is Cheryl. Now what it does here, when you use the user BLF and you program it in here, it will default the label to the name that is programmed in your system for that extension. So we're just going to hit save, and if we want to just leave that name there as it is, that's fine, but we can also, if we want to, we can press label and customize what the button says, but we're not going to do that at this point, but just know that you can if you want to. So we've got the user BLF button, button 14, programmed for Cheryl, which is extension 202. I will come back a little later when we go to test these buttons and show you how you can see the status of that user. We're going to move along. I'm going to scroll down to button 15, and we are going to program this for the feature send all calls. This is essentially a do not disturb feature, and when you program this on a button, it makes that button to toggle the feature on and off. When it's on, the light will come on. When it's off, the light will come off. So we're going to hit replace, and we are going to scroll down to send all calls. Now you don't have to put any phone number in for this one. So right away you'll go to label, and you will name it whatever you want it to show on the button. A lot of people will spell out do not disturb. In my case, I'm just going to put DND. Again, I'm going to use the 0 for a space between the letters here. You should do it the same way that you did the other ones, and hit save. So those buttons are all three programmed now. So I'm going to use this button here to exit and go back to my home screen. Okay, this is my home screen. Now if I scroll to the second page, there's the three buttons that we just programmed. ASI was our abbreviated dial. Cheryl, that's our user BLF, and the DND is our send all calls. Now we're going to test these. Okay, so the ASI, again, when you press that button, it's going to dial the number that you programmed in there. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and hang up because I don't have a phone line that I'm connected to on this demonstration model phone system. But when you test that button, you'll want to let it ring and let the person answer, make sure you got the right party and all that. Okay, the second button that we programmed says Cheryl. That we programmed a user BLF for extension 202. And if we press that button, extension 202 rings. I'm going to go ahead and hang up again, and we'll go back to that button and demonstrate what the status lights are. Okay, here when it's blank, when there's no light on it at all, that indicates that that party is available to take a phone call. If they happen to have their phone in do not disturb mode, I'm going to turn her do not disturb on here. This is what it'll look like, just a solid red light. Indicates that the person is either in do not disturb mode or their phone is unplugged. So I'm going to turn their do not disturb back off. Okay, and now I'm going to use a third extension to dial 202. Her phone is now ringing. You'll get this slow flash. when the phone is ringing at that location. If she was to answer and she's on a live call, then you get the faster flash. Okay, when they hang up, it goes back to normal. Blank. So that's the user BLF. The third one is the do not disturb or send all calls feature. If you press the button, it turns it on. As long as that green light is lit, it's in do not disturb mode. Turn it off, just press the button again, it goes away. That indicates whether you are in do not disturb or not. Now there's one other thing that we can do with these do not disturbs, and that is what we call a do not disturb exception. And what that is the phone system will check for caller ID when somebody's trying to call you. And if you're in do not disturb and the caller ID matches a phone number that you've put in your do not disturb exceptions list, then your phone will still ring. And to program those numbers, we'll go to features, go to call settings, and do not disturb exceptions. Now you'll notice I have Cheryl in here already. If we wanted to add another number in there, all we do is put the number in there. You don't have to put the 9 in on this one because it's just looking for caller ID. And so if I put our 800 number in there again, it's 800-274-2047, and hit add. Now if somebody calls me and the caller ID shows that number, if I'm on do not disturb, it will still ring my phone. Let's test this with Cheryl. I'm going to go back to my home screen here. So I'm going to, from Cheryl's extension, I'm going to dial 201, which is my extension, and notice my phone still rings. Well, I guess I'm not in do not disturb mode. Let me go back to my do not disturb, put it in do not disturb mode. You see it's in do not disturb. Now I will try calling 201 again. It's in do not disturb. It still rings because it is Cheryl that's calling me. If I was to call from a number that's not in that list, then it will go to voicemail. So I'm going to go back to that do not disturb list, features, call settings, do not disturb exceptions. I have Cheryl in there and I have that other number. If you wanted to remove a number from this, you just scroll to that number, hit remove, and they're gone. And that is that. So we have our abbreviated dial, our user BLF, and our send all calls. And I hope that this video has been helpful to you. Thank you for listening.